Okay, it is 7:33 and we are back in public session. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we have no special presentations tonight, so we'll move on to superintendent's comments. Dr. Forte?
Okay. A couple updates on projects. The Valley View field netting project is almost complete. It looks really good. The Lakeview roof, just waiting on the final inspection. It's pretty close. And the Riverview HVAC, just a little bit of loose ends. They're almost done with that. Sandy and I went to the CJ Pride Job Fair. It was virtual. It was on March 23. Really interesting. Never did a virtual job fair, and our staff was amazing. Alexa from the Special Services Department, the administrative assistant there, really handled a lot of it for us, and she managed all the people that came in and out. There were a lot of people. Like, we had to chat with them, and then there was a lot of interviews set up. It worked really well. We didn't hire anybody from it as of right now, but it did work well so far. Hvac, we did our virtual submission, and we have our short visit on Monday. Remember, there's no team anymore, so it's really just me and the central office. We don't need anybody else for this now because we did it virtually. On the Valley View half days, walking downtown on the Friday and the Wednesday, Thursday it rained. There were over 300 Valley View students walking downtown. I took a walk downtown with Sergeant Weldon and also with Mr. Corman. Walked around, talked to the business owners and all the people in the shops, checked out the kids. They were having a great time. So many businesses really embraced the kids on those days. There, if you saw Playa Bowls, Dante's, Starbucks, Denville Pizza, they were packed. Like, the bubble tea place, there was kids walking around with bubble teas all over, like all these weird drinks that were like this big. And we were talking to the kids. Everybody was having a good time. There were a couple minor incidents, nothing too bad. And none of the shopkeepers we talked to, and I also, to give you the heads up, I reached out to the downtown Denville to give them the warning that there was going to be 300 something kids walking downtown and that they were going to be hungry and looking to go into stores. And then I followed up with downtown Denville, and they said that nothing negative was reported to the group. So I have worked with them in the past, and there have been some issues in the stores before, but this was successful. I felt like it was pretty successful. The one, I was driving to Valley View on the Friday, and I saw a lot of the kids, I would say 12, 15 kids not walking on the sidewalk. So I stopped my truck and stopped traffic for a minute, told them all to get on the sidewalk. They all did it and walked downtown. So it was pretty good. Next year, we may not be able to transport kids to and from all of the local daycare centers. So, all right, I've revised our daycare sheet with information that says that you should contact the transportation department to make sure that it'll work. There's the main one in concern is
It's the one on Route 10.
Yeah, the one on Route 10. It's like a chain. Goddard, right? Yeah, Goddard
School.
Goddard. We only have one family there with two kids, and it's, if you notice where it is, it's pretty far. Like, it's hard to get to it because you got to go all the way into Randolph and then come back up. So obviously, with our, we've reduced the amount of runs we do because we don't have enough staff. So it's definitely an issue. That the one family that already goes there has been informed. So I put it in the Friday folder, and it's in my email that'll go out to everybody on in August as well as a reminder. And good news from the Valley View Mock Trial Club, unless you're talking about this today. Perfect. Nope. No, I'm not going to steal your thunder. Your thunder's your thunder. That's it for me.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Assistant Superintendent comments. Dr. Cullis?
That leads right into what I was going to say. Our Valley View Law Adventure Team has been recognized by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, and our team is invited to present its case in front of a judge and a jury of its peers on Monday, May 9th. And this also means that their case is going to be published. Oops, sorry. The case is called Hunting or Confronting, and it will be published in NJSBF at the website. And just a thank you to Tim Ford from Einhorn Harris?
Einhorn Barbarito now.
Oh, Barbarito, yes. For being the legal mentor, and he comes in and works with our students. And kindergarten registration is open. We have 154 students registered, Lakeview 86, Riverview 56, and in the flex zone 12. So 154. This concludes the assistant superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cullis. Business administrator comments. Mrs. Growski?
No comments.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. We're going to open for our first open public comment section, agenda items only. Since there are no one in person here, I am just going to refer to the statement within the agenda, but not read it out loud. We're going to open for public comment section at 7:39 p.m. Dr. Forte, can you just confirm that there are no emails in the queue?
I just looked, but I'm gonna look again. A refresh. No emails.
Okay, no emails in the queue, no one in person, so we're going to close our first public comment section at 7:40 p.m. and move on to our agenda. Mr. Capella, would you mind moving us through old business?
I would love to. If there are no objections under old business, I would like to move items A, B, and C as a block.
Second. Thank you. Is that Mrs. Wagner? Thank you, Mr. Capella. Mrs. Wagner, any questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jetasan?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Under new business personnel, Mrs. Wagner, would you mind moving us through?
Certainly, if there are no objections, I would like to move under A personnel, items 1 through 6 as a block, which includes a number of extended school year items, the Denville Accelerated Learning Academy, the summer program, vacation day cash outs, resignations, as well as leaves, summer exploration program, extended leave of absence, physical therapist position posting, and a leave.
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Wagner. Mr. Kim, any questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jetasan?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Under instruction and program, Mr. Capello.
Certainly. If there are no objections under INP, I would like to move items 1 through 3 as a block. These include attending NJ or NASW NJ annual conference, a list of field trips, and the attached list of students from MCST to observe at Lakeview School.
Second.
second.
I think Mrs. Wagner grabbed that one. Thank you, Mr. Capello. Mrs. Wagner, any questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jetasan?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. And Mrs. Wagner, would you mind moving us through policy revisions, please?
Not at all. If there are no objections, I'd like to move items 1 under policy, which includes 3 policies for second reading and a number as indicated on the agenda for first reading.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Wagner. Mr. Kim, any questions, comments?
I had one question on 3233 political activities. Unless I missed it, I saw the word teachers in there. I'm assuming we would have the same policy apply to all school employees.
So the 3,000s are for teaching staff only, means certificated staff, including like me and Sandy and everybody. Then we have a companion one that would be 4,233.
Got it.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Kim, would you mind moving us through finance?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Under Section D, Finance, I motion that we move numbers 1 through 8 as a block, calling to attention a number of donations as well as service agreements and the approval of the discard of the TV.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Mr. Capello, any questions?
I'd like to thank all the different organizations who are making these donations.
Yeah, the birdhouses came today, right? The birdhouse cameras came today, Dr. Collis. Pretty cool. So they're going to have like a camera that shows what the birds are doing inside the birdhouses.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
No on the milk fund, yes on everything else.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes. Mr. Cass, would you mind moving us through operations, please?
Certainly. Under operations, we have items under transportation and building and grounds. So item 1 is transportation. I'm asking that the board approve the joint transportation agreement with the Educational Services Commission of Morris County for the 2022-2023 school year. Under buildings and grounds, I'm asking the board to approve 2.1, attach quotes with RFS Commercial, ESC NJ State Approved Contract 18/19-59 to remove and install new concrete district-wide utilization maintenance reserve funds. Item 2.2 is for the board to approve the revised submission and acceptance of the SSB-VEEVR Pathway 2 HVAC Replacement / New System Program Grant through the New Jersey Clean Energy Program and the amount of $464,812.50 for the projects listed below. There's a due date. Documentation has to be received by TRC by February 11th, 2023. So we have items for the 3 schools, make that just Valley View. We got the cafeteria HVAC, the band room HVAC, and the art HVAC, and EI Associates Professional Services will take care of the paperwork. Item 2.3 is to approve the initial submission to the Department of Education for the Valley View Middle School HVAC project. And also that the board has selected EI Associates, architects, and engineers to implement the above referenced projects. The district is not seeking debt service aid, therefore the projects are considered other capital projects. Also, the project is required to be submitted to the State Department of Education. The Denville BOE authorized EI Associates to amend the amendments to the district's long-range facilities plan. And also, it's resolved that the board authorize EI Associates as appropriate representatives of the board to submit any required educational plans and schematic plans for the projects. Also, the board representatives are hereby authorized and directed to submit the schematic plans and any other required information to the planning board and the Department of Environmental Protection for review and comment with all of these projects. Item 2.4 is to approve the initial submission to the Department of Education for the Lakeview Elementary School electrical service upgrade. The Board of Education has selected French and Perillo Associates to implement the above referenced projects. The district is not seeking debt service aid, therefore the project is considered other capital projects. Also, the project is required to be submitted to the State Department of Education. The Denville BOE authorizes French and Perello Associates as appropriate representatives of the board to submit any required educational plans and schematic plans for the projects. Also, the board representatives are hereby authorized and directed to submit the schematic plans and any other required information to the Planning Board and the Department of Environmental Protection for review and comment with these projects. Item 2.5 is that the board authorizes EI Associates to amend and submit the district's long-range facilities plan.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Mr. Kim? Any questions, comments?
Just a question, Tamaris, so these, the architect and the engineers were approving, but this project still needs to go out to bid?
Yes, they do have to go out to bid unless if we get a vendor that has a state contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jetasan,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes. All right, we're going to move on to go to the cause, committee reports, correspondence, discussion items, including board meeting highlights and other. We'll start with board meeting highlights. Dr. Forte, do you have any recommendations?
I was going to put field trips just to highlight that we're back and going on field trips and where they're going to go. No, I won't put where they're going to go. I'll just put field trips. And then donation from the Foundation of Denville, Acme Foundation, and the Valley View PTA.
Good by me. Anything else?
What about the one that you announced, Dr. Cullis, the legal team or the?
Good
Yeah,
point.
what
Yep,
used to be
mock
mock trial.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Everybody good with those? Awesome. Any other good of the cause? I do have one item. The last several weeks, myself, Mr. Capello, Dr. Forte, Dr. Cullis, and Mrs. Gorowski participated in a leadership kind of team building meetings, multiple meetings where we got together as a leadership team, talked about some things that we thought was working really well, and some things we can kind of start, stop, continue. I thought it went really, really well. I thank Dr. Forte for bringing it up, for bringing it to us. Thank the board for supporting it financially with a moderator, Donna Dennis, correct? I thought she did a great job, and I thought it really was beneficial. And in fact, so beneficial that we are going to try to look into how we can do it as a board. It really discussed kind of, we've probably done these all Myers-Briggs, DISC, profile, something like that. This was a different one. I think it was called Teams Profile. And it really looked at who you were as a person and then how you fit into the team and how we can all work together in a more efficient and effective manner. So I thought it was beneficial, and hopefully we can kind of bring it back as a larger project. We've got to kind of figure out some logistics on how to do that when we're talking about board meetings and public and all that. So we're going to work on that in the next couple of days and try to figure out a way to do it. But I don't know, Dr. Forte, do you want to add anything else on there?
Yeah, I thought it was very worthwhile. And when I was doing it, I felt like, wow, I wish I had that circle for everybody. It would be kind of cool. So what they did was there's 4 quadrants, and you pretty much fit into these 4 quadrants. You could fit on the inside or the outside. So there's a little bit of change around, but it was pretty good. The good news is all 4 quadrants, we have people represented in this team. So that was good. I thought it would be pretty cool to see it for the whole group though. So that's why it started coming up and we thought about it. Maybe we could have a conversation about it. Maybe would you mind putting it on your agenda for the personnel IMP, and we'll start from there and see where this grows. But thank you for bringing it up, and I thank you guys for the support of it as well.
Dr. Forte, you sent out an email last week or a couple weeks ago about the task force for S2, or were you able to get on that committee?
So it's a little more complicated than that. It's actually a bill that would have to be signed by it was approved by at least by one house. I think it might have been approved by both houses. Then it goes to the governor, and the governor has to sign the bill, and that's what would create the committee. So I tried to jump a little bit to get moving on it. I think I sent it to you, right, Laura, some info on it, or maybe I sent it to everybody. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew what was going on with it. But I did reach out to our groups that were part of, as well as the local legislatures, and asked if they could consider me for one of the slots on there. It's the entire state, so we'll see.
I have one thing. If since it's something we've discussed in the past, I wanted to bring it back to everybody's attention. You may have heard or seen there's a couple of state, one senator, I believe, and one assembly person that have introduced bills to make New Jersey high schools start later, no earlier than 8:30. The conversation apparently with Governor Murphy was that he's open to it. So I bring that up because we obviously discussed this a few years ago. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes anywhere. Looks like it was Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin and State Senator Vin Gopal. So they're both pretty high profile. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any legs behind that.
If you recall, a big stumbling block for us moving it was that there wasn't going to be any follow through from the high school. They were adamant that they weren't going to do it. So let's face it, the research shows really ninth grade is prime time, 9th through 12th, but even 8th, say. So if you're making all these changes for everybody, it's for 8th grade, but then in 9th grade, they go back an hour anyway. It was hard to argue that, right? So now, if this thing goes through, it might be something to revisit that if they actually get this law passed. But it's supposed to phase in like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, they think the 24-25 school year, beginning in the 24-25 school year, it would take effect if everything goes, I guess, according to plan.
I can tell you, I would be in favor of it to revisit it from our district. It's a subject we can certainly talk about in IMP, I would suggest, but I guess my perspective, I guess at the time, was kind of in favor of at least looking at it more. And obviously we had some significant pushback from several members of the public. I just think as a parent of 3 middle schoolers, it is absolutely brutal in the morning. I'm not going to lie. So, and by the way, and a spouse of my wife who teaches in another district at a middle school that starts way later, and we play sports against. So the sports conversation really is mute to me because our kids sit around for an hour waiting for, hour and a half waiting for the games to start because of it. So that was one of the big arguments was sports and how they were. And then obviously the fact that the high school, but whether the high school does it or not, I just think there's benefit to it. So I would be in favor of looking at it again. And I mean, I don't know how the board feels, but let's push it to IMP and have that discussion again.
Did the legislation have, it wasn't mandatory, it was optional district by district?
It's just something they're talking about. It was going to be mandatory if it goes through.
Yeah,
I think.
You would not be able to start no earlier than 8:30. And that sounded pretty mandatory, like it would be. So to give you perspective, MCST starts at 8 o'clock mostly because they bring kids from all over the county. That extra half hour makes a huge difference alone. It's not 8:30, but it's 8. But as opposed to 7:20 or 7:30, it's nice. It actually helps my daughter quite a bit.
I mean, I can speak for somebody that lives on the far side of town from Valley View, and the alarms are going off at 5:15 in my house, if not 5 a.m. on some mornings. That is really early for kids. It's brutal. I mean, because listen, I've got 2 middle school daughters who they don't take. My son, I can wake him up 5 minutes before he's got to get outside, and he's good. My daughters take a lot longer, so it is what it is, and I think it's definitely something worthwhile to look into. I can see the effect on my kids.
I do think that there will be an impact with the buses, right, and the transportation. So, yeah,
For us, it won't be too bad. I could see the high school having a problem because they have 2 high schools and they do So if they move theirs to 8:30, the other one has to be like 9:30 or something. Yeah, that I could see that being an issue for them. But for us, it would just be a matter of moving it a little bit later. You could flip it too. Like some districts are flipping theirs. My wife's district in Chatham is talking about that, where the elementary schools are going to come before the high school. The high school is going to start the latest. And it's usually the other way around. And you know, for athletics and things like that.
I think there's probably multiple options, right? You could either take a 3-tier bus system we have now and just flip the schools, maybe slight modifications, because obviously Valley View's a little bit different. All 3 of the schools are a little bit different with their routes. That's one option. The other option is one of the things we looked at last time was going to 2-tier busing, right? Which would change some of the busing, but we're struggling with busing too now. So I think it's worthwhile to put it all on the table and really look and see what all the options are. I think I'm not advocating for one or the other, but
Make sure you clarify the 2 tiers, not double decker
Right.
buses. Because
Yeah,
you did
say
that one
if-
time. Yeah.
We'll have to raise all the bridges.
it was a Facebook comment. Yes. Okay. Anything else for good of the cause?
So if you don't mind, I just wanted to share that my term is expiring the end of this year, the calendar year, and I will not.
Sorry, your microphone's cutting out. Can we
No.
turn that microphone off?
Sure. What I was saying was that I will not be seeking reelection. So if there are members of the public who will watch this live or will watch it in times to come, and for the PTA liaisons, if you wouldn't mind sharing that, there will be at least one position open on the board at the next election cycle. The petition to file deadline is sometime in July. So people have some time to think about it. But I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Wagner, for letting us know ahead of time. I think that really is helpful to the public, and obviously we'll talk about it in the future, but appreciate all your time. If disappointed to see you won't continue, but appreciate all the work you've done. You had 2 of the easy years being president, as I recall. Any other questions or anything else for, sorry, anything else for the good of the cause? All right, seeing none, I'll move on to open our second open comment section. We'll open that at 8 p.m. Once again, no one in public, and I'll have Dr. Forte check the email address. I won't read the entire comment if we don't have comments, but I would remind folks that are watching this meeting maybe later that there is an email address which you can send comments to. That's BOE meeting comments at denville.org. That exact address can be found on the agenda, on our agenda this evening, or any of the agendas. Right at the beginning is the email address, and you can send comments to that email address. They will be read aloud during the meeting. And as a reminder,
No
anybody
comments.
who sends emails to please include your name and address for the record.
No
Thank you.
comments.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. No one in public and no comments. So we'll close at 8:01 p.m. We do not have a need for a second executive. Great. Yes, please. For executive? Okay. So we have a need for a second executive. There will be no action taken post-meeting. Mr. Capello, would you mind moving us to executive?
Sure. If there are no objections, I move to convene the executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss
Student matters.
student matters. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Capello. Mrs. Wagner, all in favor?
Aye.
No nays, no abstention. We're in executive session at 8:02.